Welcome back to The Foundry, brought to you by Forge College. You've just crushed the final capstone on deployment strategy. Huge congrats! Your brand new smart contract is officially live on the blockchain. The concrete's dry, the lights are on. But wait, now that the building is actually up, we have to figure out who gets the keys to the front door. Today, in this explainer, we're diving deep into the foundations of access control to show you exactly why access control matters.
All right, to kick things off in this access control patterns course, we really need a massive mindset shift. Up until this point in your applied Solidity development track, you've spent, a ton of time modeling complex application state, figuring out how the code runs, setting up storage layouts, managing variables, the whole shebang. But now, we're shifting our perspective to who is actually allowed to run it. We're moving from just managing your application state to aggressively defending it from cunning attackers and, let's be real, clumsy internal accidents.
Here's the blueprint legend for today's explainer. We're covering 4 key things. 1. The building metaphor. 2. Closing attack surfaces. 3. Real-world failures. And 4. The final inspection. Let's get to work. Part 1. The building metaphor. Doors, keys, and guardrails. As we pan across this architectural schematic, I want you to build a mental model. Your smart contract isn't just invisible code floating out there in the ether. Think of it as a high-security physical building. Picture your state variables as the rooms inside this building, and your functions are the doors leading into those rooms. Now, some of these doors are public, exterior doors, like the main lobby. They're open to absolutely everyone. No locks required, come on in. But others, those are restricted interior doors. Think of a maintenance closet housing the power grid or a massive bank vault. Those require specific keys and specialized authorization to enter. Access control is quite simply the act of deciding exactly who holds which keys. So how do we actually secure those interior doors in Solidity? Well, we use modifiers. A modifier is basically our digital padlock. It checks the caller's address before allowing passage. If you don't have the right cryptographic key, bam, the execution immediately reverts. The doors stay slammed shut and you're left standing out in the hallway. Okay, moving on to part 2, closing attack surfaces. Why do we even restrict access in the first place? Let's see how our blueprints build into a concrete defense strategy. Before we go around installing locks, we really have to understand our enemy here, and that is the attack surface. In smart contract security, every single public entry point that performs a state change is an additional opportunity for misuse. So the broader your access, the wider your attack surface. It's like having 100 open windows on the ground floor. Our ultimate goal as developers is to shrink that surface down to the absolute bare minimum needed for the building to function. We install these locks for 3 fundamental reasons. First, to protect sensitive state. We're stopping unauthorized reads or writes that mess with balances. Second, to maintain invariance, which is preserving our critical math. And third, to enforce governance, meaning we create a crystal clear, auditable trail of who actually holds the power to do things like upgrade the contract or pull the emergency brake. Let's actually double-click on that second step for a second, maintaining invariance. An invariant is literally a load-bearing pillar of your contract's logic. It must never, ever be broken by an unauthorized state transition. Like a classic example, making sure the total supply of a token exactly equals the sum of all individual user balances. If some random person can call a function that breaks that math, the whole building comes crashing down. Access control is what limits who can trigger operations that might mess up that delicate balance. Let's slide over to part 3, real-world failures, what not to do. Because looking at catastrophic multi-million-dollar mistakes is a pretty fantastic way to remember to draw locks on your own blueprints.
Seriously, ask yourself right now, what happens if you prop a bank vault door open with a sneaker? I mean, it sounds totally ridiculous, right? But leaving an administrative function completely public in a smart contract is exactly like doing that. And usually it just happens because someone was too lazy to code a proper key check.
We don't just guess when we hand out these keys. We match the specific risk to the appropriate lock. Check out this table. Parameter setters map to a governance role. Token transfers and mints map strictly to a minter role. And the emergency pause? That maps to a pause or multisig. It's really all about amputating the most dangerous branches of your attack tree so they can't be exploited.
Okay, let's look at scenario 1, the unrestricted parameter setter. Imagine a decentralized lending protocol where literally anyone off the street can just casually call the set interest rate function. If that door is public and unchecked, they could set the interest rate to infinity. No joke, that means instant market chaos, mass liquidations, and a totally drained protocol. A proper lock restricts this to a governance role and puts strict mathematical bounds on acceptable rates.
Or, honestly, even worse, scenario 2, minting without role checks. Imagine a treasury contract that just forgets to verify the caller on a mint function. An attacker can literally waltz right through that exterior door, print infinite tokens for themselves, and walk right out. We've seen this happen in the wild time and time again, draining massive amounts of value just because an interior door was left wide open.
So to prevent that specific minting nightmare, we use RBAC, or Role-Based Access Control. This is where we combine multiple locks and keys so that very specific modular permissions are required. It ensures that only a designated minter role holds that specific key. You aren't giving them the master key to the whole building, you're just giving them the key to the printing press.
And that brings us to scenario 3, emergency pause abuse. Let's say you do have a lock, but you've centralized your emergency pause powers to a single externally owned account. If that one admin clicks a bad phishing link on their laptop, the entire protocol gets taken hostage. Just one compromised key can freeze the whole system indefinitely, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
The fix for that terrifying situation is utilizing time locks and multi-sig governance. A time lock is essentially a built-in delay mechanism for high-impact changes. These are advanced patterns you'll actually be building yourself in our upcoming Forge College programs. Basically, they distribute that immense power safely across multiple parties and force a mandatory waiting period, giving the community time to react if a malicious change gets proposed.
All right, part 4, the final inspection. Enforcing the rules. Let's lock in these foundational rules for the rest of your Solidity journey.
Look, if you take away just one single concept from this explainer today, let it be the principle of least privilege. This golden rule dictates that you give every role the absolute fewest permissions necessary to do their job, and you separate duties whenever you can. Going back to our building metaphor, you never, ever give the master key to an intern who just needs to go down and read the electric meter.
Always keep these 3 rules in your back pocket. Number 1, narrow roles will always beat all powerful admins. Number 2, pair your authorization with internal validations. A lock is great, but it isn't enough on its own. You need sanity checks inside the room to prevent even authorized callers from making foolish mistakes. And number 3, strict access control provides verifiable mathematical evidence for your security audits.
So as a quick mental exercise before we jump into writing the actual code in the next lesson, I want you to think about your latest contract. Who currently holds the master key? And what happens if they lose it? I challenge you to map out the minimal roles for 2 functions in a contract you care deeply about. Remember, vague security instincts won't save you out there, but strict, hard-coded access control rules definitely will.
Now that you understand the blueprint of exactly why access control is so paramount, it's time to actually put it into practice. Master these mechanisms and continue your Web3 learning journey by visiting forge.college. That's where you'll learn how to forge these exact locks in Solidity, along with a ton of other awesome Web3 topics. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today, brought to you by Forge College. Stay secure out there, and I'll catch you in the next one.